Welcome all, Raymond for Stream Gamers. Here we are once again. We're in New Zealand, Milford Sound, NZMF. I thought we would start here. Today's video is more about, discussing 2024 and first impressions and all those wonderful things that, that's happened. And maybe not so wonderful things. Let me turn this on. There we are. You can see my ugly mug whilst we're explaining. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to touch on the very first part of 2024's release, some of the issues that people have had, some of the myths that are being spelled out there, and some of the realistic things. First things first, the launch, and was it a poor launch? Was it a bad launch? Yeah, the answer to that question in my mind is yeah, it was bad. Was it bad at the fault of Sobo or Microsoft? I'm not sure. 2020, we got to go back to the beginnings of 2020. Microsoft Flight Sim 2020, it was wildly popular. One could anticipate 2024 could be equally popular, and therefore could anticipate a lot of demand, day one, hour one, as it were. The second thing is, with it being a cloud-based scenery thing that we actually get now, that I'm aware of, it isn't a thin client. We're not utilizing the server's resources to render the game. We're using our own resources. We're just getting the data from the cloud and then rendering it and displaying it on, through our graphics card and so forth and so on. So it's a bit of a myth the way I hear people talk about this, and I just want to make sure that people that see this don't misconstrue that Microsoft servers are holding the game entirely at hostage, because they're not. We play the game on our server. Now, the dreaded window that most of you saw, we're in a queue, we're in the queue. Look, at the end of the day, they did the alpha test. From what I understand, they simulated 200,000 connections at once. Could they have anticipated that 200,000 would have been far, far from what it actually was going to be? I think they could have. Again, you look at 2020 numbers and you look at that and you say to yourself, look at how popular that was. That was by the millions and millions of people playing the game, as opposed to, tens and maybe hundreds of thousands of people playing FSX in its day. So they could have anticipated that, there was going to be a huge surge for 2024. I think they could have said, look, let's get this out in the hands of more people and not do a 200,000 user simulated connection, but actually get everybody and their dog who's willing to do it, get them on the alpha test, break the damn thing and see if it can be broken. And if it can, now they understand where the problem is, and they have a number of weeks to get the problem fixed. Thirdly, 3 days might not have been enough time. One would say, why didn't we have a week with it? Why didn't we test it for a week? I'm not sure. And these are only my opinions. These are only my thoughts, that I think that maybe we could have had more time with it. Okay. So those are some of the things that we know. We know that when you're making a connection, you're connecting to effectively a database that's there waiting for connections to get to it, and all those people are coming into that database, acquiring all of the information necessary so that you can actually get into the sim and start flying. I myself personally would have been an advocate for them to have a similar model like they did with 2020, where the vast majority of it is here on our computers. The need to have constant connectivity doesn't need to be there. We should be able to play 2024 without the connectivity. Maybe we don't have as good a graphics. Maybe we're missing some of the features. But anyways, they've chosen to do it this way. And there is an argument why they've chosen it to do it this way as well. I'm not going to travel down that road. In my mind, the unwanted hate, spamming and blasting of Microsoft and the SOBO of, how could you, people are going to complain. People are going to complain, and no amount of reasoning will change that. People are going to have expectations that far exceed what we're actually doing here. I had a subscriber once say to me, or a commenter, not necessarily subscriber, said to me in my comments section, he said he had given up on 2020 and Microsoft Flight Sim in general. There was just too many anomalies that just didn't sit well for him. Paraphrasing, because the exact words were summers in this line. If you're listening to this, please go ahead and comment again if you like. I appreciate those types of comments as well. To him, I say, that's unfortunate. I wish the experience had been better. But I also say, okay, if not 2020 or 2024, then what simulator? Because I had said, are you going to give up on flying entirely? No, I'm going to look for a new simulator. Then I said, like I said to him, I said, okay, so not 2020 or not 2024 because there's too many anomalies. Then what simulator will you migrate to? Because you're flying it for scenery, you're flying it for the planes, you're flying it for the entire world map as closely represented as it can be. And quite honestly, Microsoft is holding us hostage at this, that there isn't anything better, or at least that I know of. And if there is, down there in the comment section, please put it in there. I would love to see what's better. So I think to myself, people who make these comments, these statements, and these complaints, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. Recently, I had a fellow say to me, you know what, there's no, it's not a mistake why we're in the 172. We're here for a specific reason. I had a user say to me, hey, 2024 is broken, blah, 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 hate. And I said, oh, what's the matter? And the guy says, well, the GPS doesn't work on the Cessna 172 G1000. I said, what do you mean? What do you mean it doesn't work? He says, well, I can't put a destination in there. I can't enter a flight plane in there. And I said, it doesn't work. He said, yeah. Well, to that user, if you're watching this, please observe. It's not that complicated. In fact, it's very similar as it was in 2020, if not exactly the same. So we go down here, we flip the battery on, and then we flip the avionics on, and then, the screens do their screening things, and then they do this. I want to just preface all of what I'm about to do and say here, I'm not a pilot, so I may be flipping the buttons wrong. That's not what this is for. Now we have our things here. And let's go ahead and get it started so we don't kill the battery and all that good stuff, and then we'll do a flight. But so I said to him, I said, well, it's not any more complicated in here than it was in 2020 from what I understand. He said, no, he said, I get that. He says, but it doesn't work. So, all right, it doesn't work. Well, let's see that it doesn't work, shall we? Well, that seems to work exactly as you would expect, right? Now the next thing is let's just slide over, and we're here in Milford Sound, so we're going to do a direct, and we're going to do a direct over to where are we going to do this direct? Let's go to Martins Bay because we can. So direct, click Martins Bay, NZ MJ. Right, enter, oops, enter. Oh, I gotta hit enter. NZ MJ. Yeah. Okay. So activate, and if we look on the GPS map, there it is. So I don't want to be focused too much on that, but the reason why I've done this is because I want to kind of point out something. When people are stating this is broken, that's broken, this doesn't work, that doesn't work, this plane is bad, this avionics system is bad. I in my previous life, I've been a system administrator. I know computers relatively well, maybe not current, up to date as much, but the bottom line is 99% of the time when it doesn't work, it's almost an assurity it's the user that's using it. Computers don't deal in almosts. They don't deal with, well, I don't want to work this time. If everything is equal, it will always work. And so anyways, this is just a point of that. So I caution those people that if things aren't working, what I do for myself is simply this. I say to myself, it's not working. What am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? Because 99% of the time, it is me. I have forgotten. I tried to start a Cessna up just a bit ago, and I couldn't get the thing to start. I couldn't get it to start. And in my mind, I was thinking to myself, geez, what is going on? I'm missing something. Well, I forgot to take the pitot tube heaters off. Something we've not had to do before in 2020, and I forgot to take them off. The plane wouldn't start. Now I know another side of a Raymond might go, oh, the plane is broken, it doesn't work, it doesn't do this, and it's a piece of junk, and the Sobo and Microsoft, they've created crap, and so on and so on. Not so much. It's me, the user. So enough of that. I just want to make sure that people understand that when you're having problems in the sim, gone are the days where software is so sketchy and coding is so bad that, that can happen. Today we're in a much different environment, and 99% of the time the coding is working and working good. So we began our 2024 career, and it took me, I think, about 7 hours to get into the sim the first time. Frustrated? Sure I was. Yeah, absolutely. Did I anticipate problems when 2024 came out? Yes. Not being able to log into the sim, was that a bad look for Microsoft and Asobo? Sure it was. Absolutely. No question about it. It was a bad look for them. You launch a product and people are anticipating it, counting down the hours, and they can't get in it for 5, 6, 7, 10, 12 hours. Yeah, that's not a good look. However, later on that evening, so I could get it at 10 o'clock in the morning. I didn't get started till about noon. I take that back. I didn't get started till about 1:30 in the afternoon. And it took me from 1:30 in the afternoon throughout till 5, 6 o'clock-ish before it started making some real headway. By 10 o'clock at night, people were able to log out and log back in without that message happening consistently. There were still some that were getting it. By this morning, I just turned on the computer, turned on the sim, booted it up as if I was in 2020, and it started. And I've logged out and logged back in, logged out and logged back in several times. It works as good as it did in 2020 in terms of the booting up and that kind of stuff. So here we are, yet a day away, and they fixed the problem. I watched a video where a guy talked about, he figured, it'll take them 24 hours, and then he referred to 48 and possibly even 72 hours to fix it. Well, the reality is it took, maybe 24 hours. I suspect less than that. And it seems to be working and working fine. Now let's talk about some of the good stuff about 2024. So we have this little sub-menu up here. Of course, the little sub-menu up here gives us weather, right? So we can go in here and we can customize weather and we can do all this good stuff. I want to back out. We'll come back here in a second. I want to go back to the main menu. And I want to look at a free flight. I want everybody to realize that when you're here, flight conditions, really important thing. Just like 2020, it has these flight conditions. And if you don't have all players on, you are not going to see everybody in the sim. Now, I made this mistake, and for some reason or other, I believe I had fixed this, and yet it's back to live, so I don't know why. But anyways, make sure you have it set to all players. It will allow you to see now people flying around. We spent, a group of us spent an hour, probably, trying to figure out why we couldn't see one another on ground. Finally, a member said, "Hey, yeah, you remember that window that we used to always go to and make sure it was set up right?" Yeah. Well, he found it. That's what it's got to be on. This up here, AI traffic live versus AI versus off. That's a setting you can set however you like. I mean, if you want to see the live traffic, that's the live commercial and non-commercial aircraft flying around the world. You can go live. That's typically where I go. That's typically what I set at. I usually set to live weather, although I will say that if you use a preset, set for preset, it allows you to once you're in the sim, customize the weather to your liking for your flying conditions of that day. Now, for me, 99% of the time, it doesn't matter because I fly live weather. So that's why I usually have it set to live. For this demonstration, I'm going to keep it on preset. So be mindful of these settings. Be mindful that you can set some standard, this is what I want it to always look like when I log in, right? That's going to be a part of my preset, okay? I always want it to be there. I always kind of want it to be there and so forth and so on, right? So you can adjust these settings however you like, and then when you save them, these will be the settings that you will log into the sim with each time you log in. Now, the next thing we're going to talk briefly about is we're going to talk about controls, customizations, and stuff like that. Let's kind of go through the general tab first. So your graphics settings, they are what they are. If you have DLSS, you should put that on. It will give you a better frame rate. VSync is kind of one of those things that I'm not 100% sure its value, so I never mess with that. I always have DLSS super sampling on, and I always set it to quality. And these are my settings. I have an RTX 4080 GPU and a Ryzen 7 5800 X3D processor. So those are my settings. Yours, will differ, and as they should. You can go down here and you can click this little drop down menu and this little drop down menu, and you can set your frame rates, what you would like to target for frame rates. Okay. You can come down here and you can adjust it, customize as you see fit, based on your hardware settings and so forth. When you get the sim and you load it up, it's going to give you some recommendations. You can choose to use them and then fine tune it later if you like. You can see that most of my stuff is set on ultra. I didn't set it this way. I just kind of went through that system and said, here, set me up the way you think I should be set up, and I'm gonna fly that way. Okay. So next, we'll get rid of that. So the next thing we want to talk about is, well, language is somewhat self-explanatory. We're going to talk about the sound ever so slightly. My system, for whatever reason, always defaults to this default audio setting. Oops, cancel. Default audio setting. Why it does this, I can't tell you, but go in here and make sure that you have your audio settings set up right, okay? So main output device, which is your microphone, I believe that's considered your output device. So that's my output device. Okay, so I'm going to confirm that. Have that set. Then I'm going to confirm my speakers. I usually do everything on speakers. Yours will be different. Okay, your listening mode. I'm not 100% sure what this all means, but I have it set to TV. I suspect that that's speakers, and that's kind of what I do. Most of the volume settings down here are going to be your choice and how you decide and what you decide to do with them. I always turn music off because I hate that constant, that constant blathering of music in the background. It drives me nuts. Anyways, Multiplayer voice chat. I haven't been able to test this thoroughly, but yes, there is multiplayer voice chat as well as text chat. So it is something, and this is the reason why this up here is quite important to have set up properly. 2020 we didn't have that, so we had the ability to set those inputs and output devices, but we never had voice chat capable. So why they even had it in there, I'm not sure, but they did. Anyway, maybe they did it with anticipation. Online, so your online settings, you can have real-time online set. Now, I had a person say to me, oh, no, you got to have that off, otherwise you won't be able to see one another in multiplayer. Not true. And I'll caution you, everybody who's watching this video, take everything that you hear with a grain of salt and a certain level of skepticism. Just because somebody told somebody this is the way it is doesn't always necessarily mean that's factual and true. It doesn't mean that it's not. Just take it with some skepticism. What I'm telling you as well, take that with some skepticism too. Although I do try to research some of this stuff, I'm not infallible, and I can make mistakes. When I hear statements like, oh, no, that won't work because if you did this, it won't work. Well, I'm almost immediately, what comes to my attention is, I don't know if that's actually true. Anyways, you can set your server, right? Make sure you have your multiplayer turned on. I put my live weather on, but you can have that off. You can just like we did in the other sim, you can change your servers. You can go to various different servers around the world. Use the one that makes better sense for you. I always fly US East because the vast majority of people I fly with happen to fly on there. But you can see my latency is better to the west. But 50 milliseconds versus 73, don't care. Okay. Show multi-aircraft in proximity. That is, so if you and your friend are sitting there you're on the runway and he's on the taxiway, you're ready to get going, and you guys are relatively close, you will still see one another. You both need to have that in place. If you have it in place, you'll see him, but he won't see you. So you both have to have that in place. Here's where you enable your voice chat communications and your speakers. Again, I see it. It's in here again. That's odd. Here's where you enable you convert incoming voice to text. Okay. So you convert your incoming voice messages and so forth from here into a text message. I haven't tested it, so I'm not 100% sure. This is how you enable your text. Text chat messages display time. You'll be able to see how long that message shows. Here's another one. I had a friend of mine say to me, I wish they would have put rolling cache back in the sim. And to that I said to him, and I was on this screen when he said it to me. Him and I were kind of going through the sim. And I was on this screen when he said this to me. I wish that's what it was. And I said, well, I have it. No. He said, no. Joe, Bob, Bill, whatever his name was, told him that the new sim doesn't have rolling cache. And I said, well, look right here. Rolling cache. Now, you can't turn it off. I'm not sure that I understand why, other than to me it feels like it's Microsoft's way of saying, hey, listen, for all you guys that fly around the same area all the time, you will cache that scenery to your computer. You won't have to do the download, and it will save them network congestion. That's the only thing I can think of, because if I were to put this to 0, I get such a message. It wants me to have a rolling cache of some size. Okay, so that's what I think it's for, which makes sense. I mean, it's to the benefit of us just the same. Okay, data consumption, you can see so far this session I've used 1.2 gigs. So those that have caps on their data, you can set your bandwidth and how much you will or will not use to a nominal amount, and then your scenery will be adjusted accordingly. But you can kind of control some of the data in which you do use. You can also set yourself a warning here to say, hey, let me know when I've consumed X number of data of megs or gigs, and that way you're aware of how much you're using for those that have caps. Okay. Camera Camera, I won't spend a lot of time. This is all kind of mostly personal preferences that you need to set up. Okay, flight and model is another one of those things we won't spend a lot of time with. This is kind of one of those things that you need to set up based on your preference. I've got mine set to legacy. When you first get into the sim, you will have it set to, I believe it's modern, but I've got mine set to legacy. Crash, I recommend this off, even if you're an expert simmer. 2024 is, in my mind, a little more difficult to fly. Not bad, just more difficult to fly. There's a certain level of realism that we haven't been used to, i.e., true turbulence and updrafts and stuff like that, soft ground landings and stuff like that. So I have mine turned off. I'll probably turn mine on later. Okay. We talked about camera, flight models. We talked about flight interface. Here's a few things that we should look at. I always have my markers and cities off. I have my airports on. I show pre-flight pins. I don't want them on. And if you're not seeing everybody in the sim because you're not seeing that nameplate, this is where you turn that on. Now, I haven't tested, can we put some third-party add-on, although Microsoft did say that the third-party add-ons in general are going to work. So is it possible that we can just drag and drop that third-party add-on for nameplates so we can change colors and sizes and so forth? It's possible. Okay. The rest of the stuff, you can see the settings in which I have. Again, this is more personal things. So the HUD cockpit view, meaning you get to see all of the information down here, which I like, but each to their own. This is where you can turn that off. Okay, advanced options. Won't spend a lot of time in here, but here we can kind of have like to create a report and that kind of stuff. We probably don't need to spend any more than that here. And of course, legal and credits, we won't talk about that. Assistance, again, it's very much like 2020. Come in here, change your assistant settings as you see fit. Accessibility, very much the same. Come down in here and have a look at it. I don't have any direct recommendations that you should do this or that you shouldn't do that. So this is all personal preference. I will say this: if you do come in here and you make adjustments and changes, do them incrementally. Don't go in here and put that tick here and this tick here and that tick here and this tick here and this change this setting, and now you got 30 different changes and you get back in the sim and it doesn't look right to you, but you can't remember what you all did. So do them incrementally. Do one or two where you know where they are, that if you don't like the outcome of them, you can change them. Okay. And then for the VR guys, I'm not one, but VR, this is where the VR settings are. So that takes us through most of it. Controls is another one. I'm not going to touch on how to set up every control for every system, because we would be here till next the next new release of Microsoft Flight Sim 2020. So we won't do that. But I will do this. I will say, look, if you want to set up, say, for example, a key that you would like to use to toggle inside the aircraft and outside the aircraft, how do you do that? Well, in my case, I'm going to use my flight stick that I use. So I'm going to select that. Okay. I'm going to scroll down here to what camera? I'm looking for camera. There, to camera. Click on camera. I'm going to click on camera mode switches, and here you see cockpit internal view mode. Now, I inadvertently selected my rudders, and you see that, and so I made that mistake. I actually want this. So you're still here, and notice that when you click on that, you're still in that same area, just now you're modifying the device you want to be modified, which is what I've done, and I've set that button there. Okay. It's going to create a new profile. You can go down here and change these names and stuff like that. I haven't totally wrapped my head around it, but for one other thing that I have, and if you do the changes for the 172 and don't do this next step, you will have to do these same changes for every other aircraft out there. But you can decide to click here and you can say apply this to all the aircraft, not just to the 172. Okay, so that's what I've done, is I've gone in here and applied that all to all of my aircraft, so they're all the same. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to go in there and later on customize, specific ones. I'm just going to get you up in the air, get you flying, get you loving the sim, and you can come in here and you can change a lot of the settings. Another thing that I should point out, that I wish they had done differently, and maybe they have, I just don't know how to do it, and that is a possibility. So if I go back into controls and I go to flight surfaces and I pick my joystick here, and I go to primary controls, and let's use this as for example the ailerons. Okay, so I want to adjust the sensitivities of that controller on the ailerons. Click this little button here, click this little button right here, and here you have a similar function like we had the last time. Now, the only problem with this is that I wish they had changed is, you notice the little dot there? Well, when I'm moving my controller around, that little dot is not moving around. And in 2020 that did, and it kind of gave you a gauge for how sensitive things were or were not. Now you can adjust sensitivity, right? You can say, I don't want it to be quite so sensitive. I'd like to enter a little bit of dead zone so that my controller is not wiggling around too terribly much. And I can say, okay, that's good for me. That's what I want. Go back, and we're done. Okay, so just be aware that that's where you go to look at this graph. It took me a long time to find that. All right, now the next thing is let's do a little taxiing and maybe a little flying and so forth, and just see how it all looks. We did do a flight before. I'm gonna put us here all started up on the end of the runway. You'll be able to see how long it takes. Look at the scenery, the mountain there. Here we are, and so that's how long it actually takes to get back into the sim. It's literally that long. Now, that mileage will change based on your hardware, right? Better hardware likely will go a little quicker. Slower hardware likely go a little slower. So here we are in the sim. Like it was in 2020, you got the appropriate trim set, you got the appropriate flap set, so you don't need to do that. You can go to the gate and do all this manually, but here you are. We'll just take a quick little peek. Now, in my previous videos in the Alpha Edition, I had it set and it was kind of hazy and things didn't look very good. So I've decided to do this one here again so we can get rid of some of that haze and it doesn't look so hazy, and maybe the scenery will just look a little crisper and nicer. Right, here we go. Let's take off. Mash the pedal. Brakes off. And I did spend a fair bit of time kind of tweaking my rudder pedals, my ailerons, and all that kind of stuff. I did spend some time tweaking that. It does require that. Unfortunately, what I believed was going to happen didn't happen, and that is I believed that our profiles from 2020 would migrate over, and they didn't. So, but what did happen is, if you remember the previous video, the water textures down here were all broken up and they looked weird and goofy. That's not there. They fixed that, so that's good. And look at the view. Look at the mountains. In my mind, they've done an incredible job in this area. New Zealand is such a beautiful country. Every part of it that I've flown around in. I've never been personally. I'd love to go. And yet, we still have some of this less than stellar. I think all the trees make it look good, but at the same time, you would not expect these mountains would have that much trees on them. You would expect to some level of barrenness and stuff like that. But it in general, I think it looks pretty good, and it's only going to improve. I have full confidence that the developers are going to get out there and they're going to start making product for the sim, and that product is going to just enhance. So we do see the ships there, right? So you can see there's 2 ships there. I believe, somebody correct me in the comment section if I'm wrong, but I believe if those are not the, I believe those are the correct names of those ships that are here right now. I mean, without all the tags being in the way, the scenery is quite beautiful. But anyway, so that's what I believe. I believe those tags are the actual names of the ships that are sitting down there. We're going to go up here just a little further, and then we're going to kind of warp speed ourselves a little bit and get ourselves a little further toward Martins Bay, where I want to kind of wrap up the video with some final thoughts and some opinions and stuff like that. And for those that are watching this, anything that I have said that you know to be false, I would love nothing more for you to put it in the comment sections to let me know that that's false. But I'd also like you to actually cite some of the proof as to why it's false. I had a subscriber say, I used the phrase tube-liner, and he said nobody calls them tube-liners. And I said, well, in my group, they do. Now, is that regional? Is it in the U.S. they're not referred to as tube-liners, in Europe they are, or vice versa? I don't know. But his statement was nobody refers to them as tube-liners, and I thought to myself, well, wait a minute. I'm somebody, and I do refer to them as tube-liners, not always, but I do. Anyways, so this mountain here on this side always looked kind of washed out, flat, stretched. This peninsula that juts out here isn't as pronounced as it is in 2020. Whether this is realistic, true real scenery, I don't know, but it certainly looks better. Oops, I'm having a hard time holding on by a button. But it certainly looks better than what it does in 2020. I caution you to go get into 2020 and fly over there and have a look at that. Why don't I just do this instead of holding that button? But yeah, I caution you, or suggest, hey, get in a plane in 2020, fly out here and have a look at this edge, this rock, this mountain face, and you're going to see that it is significantly improved. All right. So we are going to just come out of the bay here, or go back into the big part of the water. And Shift Z is the default slew button. We used to have it for Y. Shift Z does that. Otherwise, the control settings are identical. We're gonna do one of these things. What I'd like to do is to get ourselves a little closer. Somewhere around there, and then Shift Z again to take it off. Martins Bay is over here somewhere. So here we are, flying along. I am mesmerized by the scenery, the beauty of it all. It's just absolutely incredible to me how software developers have been able to conquer this type of scenery, this type of enjoyment that we get. I've said it many times. I'll probably say it many more times. It just blows me away. All right. As we fly here and finish up our flight into Martins Bay, we're going to talk a little bit about performance. I know we talked about performance in some of my earlier releases, the alpha releases, and we talked about, and I've always added a caveat to the whole system to say, hey, this isn't the real full world that we're going to fly in, and so we may see some degradation. It may not be as good in terms of frame rates, smoothness, lack of stutters and stuff like that. I had a commenter comment about that very thing, and he said, yes, but you're not in the full photogrammetry scenery. Now, I realize this is not a full photogrammetry scenery area. However, I am getting, as you can see, 123 frames, 125, 119, and so forth and so forth. My GPU is now being maxed out, or very close to, whereas my GPU before was hardly being used. I say hardly, it was about 60%. My CPU was really getting a beating. Well, now it's my GPU that's doing a lot more work because of this multi-thread. Where I understand 2020 has multi-thread, they haven't done it anywhere near to the same efficiency with the amount of detail that 2024 it's been done in. Because if I'm flying in 2020 right now here, and I've done this many times, my frame rates are not 120 something. My frame rates here are somewhere in the 90s. Somewhere in the 90s. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because 90 frame rates is pretty gosh darn good, right? All we really care about is the smoothness, the fidelity. Is what we're looking at nice? Does it look beautiful? Does it look somewhat representative of what the real world looks like? I have no illusions that I'm expecting this to look exactly like the real world, because it won't, and I don't expect it to. Okay, but it looks pretty breathtaking. The clouds, the mountains, all of it. It's incredible. The shoreline. Those that aren't familiar with this area, come out here and fly around here. Fly into. Let me get you the name of that little strip on the beach. Big Bay Beach. Or just on the other side of the ridge in front of us, as we begin our descent down into Martins Bay, there's a beach there. Go land on that beach. Have a look. Another thing to note, some of the stuff that Microsoft has been telling us that is going to be in the sim. If you see my frame rates dip down like that, that's because my screen focus is somewhere else. As soon as I focus back on the main screen, back it comes. Okay. If you land on that beach and you see the incredible textures that are available to us in terms of that shoreline, the sand and the actual intricacies of the textures and stuff like that, it's breathtaking. It really is. Go to your favorite airport that has that type of scenery. Come here and do it here, but land on these beaches. Have a look at them. They are amazing. They're just absolutely amazing. Another thing that I'm finding varying different opinions about what they've done, and that is in terms of runways and the surrounding airports. I can understand and appreciate that they can't 3D model and handcraft every little hole in the ground airstrip airport. I understand that. And those that don't understand that, they should. It would be an enormous undertaking. All I say to those people is go out and get yourself a copy of Blender, go and learn how to model, turn the developer mode on, learn how to model, put it in the sim, orchestrate that and all that, and see how much actual work it actually is. My airport, CKK7, is an airport that I did just that. So if you go to flightsim.to, you can look up that airport, C or Charlie Kilo 7. Go put that in. I suggest go to that airport first, have a look around, and then put that scenery pack in and have a look at it, and you will see it. In my mind, it looks really nice. But that airport has probably taken me the better part of 300 hours. Now, a lot of that's to do with learning, because I didn't know how to do some of the stuff that I wanted to. But, and a lot of that is to do with, I made a building, and I'm a little OCD when it comes to things. If things aren't exactly the way they need to be, the way I want them to be, I will spend an endless amount of time tweaking it until such it is. And so some of that time is associated to that. This is the beach that I was suggesting go land on and have a look at it. You know what? We're going to finish our flight down there. That's what we're going to do. I was intending to finish our flight over at Martins Bay, but we're going to let this thing fall out of the sky, and we're going to finish our flight there and show you what I see and stuff like that. So, you know, what I was not worried about, but I was somewhat questioning, you know, is the scenery going to be as good as we hoped it to be? Is the performance going to be as good as it was in the alpha test? The answer to both those questions in my mind is a definite yes, yes. I think it's incredible. I think the scenery is second to none. I don't think there's a simulator out there that has this level of detail, this level of correctness, this amount of the world as a whole being brought into a simulator. There are some sims that are pretty good, but they're not the whole world. They don't involve the world. Where here we are involving the entire world. Can we have a look down there at Martins Bay? Have we passed it? I guess we have. Well, that's part of the Martins Bay strip there. No, that's part of the other strip. What's the next thing? Oh, so I haven't done this. My wife has indicated to me that I might be doing it more than I should, but I'm pretty passionate about what I'm trying to accomplish here and build this community. And so I will do it once again. Please give us a like, comment, subscribe. We're just over 300 subscribers, and I would love to be able to hit 1,000 before year's end. And it is only with your willingness to hit those buttons does that actually take place. I appreciate it. If you enjoy my content, I would appreciate that sort of help in continuing the comment or the content. So we're going to land here, put her on the sand. We'll try not to crash, but no guarantees. Oh, a little rough. So this is another thing that we have to take into consideration as we're flying on the world. Not every surface is a surface ready to be landed on. The world is rough. No. Well, yeah. See, this is going to end badly. Yeah, there we go. Now we're in the drink. That's okay. We got our stuff. That's really all that matters. Put the brakes on. So, put the brakes on. Jump out. Let's go for a little stroll. Here we are. Let's go up here to the rocks over here. But so look at the detail, the footprints, what appears to be somewhat footprints, but maybe just wind blowing little pockets of sand and so forth, little pebbles and stuff like that. This is not the scenery that's a little bit of a glitch thing there. But this is, look at that line. But this is not the scenery that we are used to in 2020, and it certainly isn't the scenery we're used to in X-Plane or in FSX. For those that think maybe those are better, I digress. I don't know if anybody actually thinks that. But look at the level of detail that we're looking at here. The rocks, the boulders, and that kind of stuff. Just it's amazing, right? It's literally amazing. If I go back and you look at the sand being kicked up from the engine running. That is something that we've not seen before either, and that too, in my mind, is amazing. I got distracted with the like, comment, subscribe, and all that, so I'm not sure did I actually get the message out, or did I suggest that I wanted you to do it without asking you. So I'm going to formally ask you to hit the like, give us a comment, hit a subscribe. Put the notification bell on. It is the best way for you to catch wind of new videos coming out. Now that 2024 is a series that is out and playable, I will be creating content. I will be creating, when I say content, I mean I'll be creating scenery in the sim. I will also look at the tire tracks. Look at how deep that is, right? And as we were bumping through it, some hard sections of ground and soft sections of ground as we come through there. So I'll be creating content for the sim as well. If you have an airport and you want to try your hand at it, send me a comment or send me a message. I couldn't spend a lot of time because there's lots of people that want to know how to do it, but I wouldn't be opposed to helping out a little bit, giving some direction. We do have a Discord channel. I will post that in the description. Look at the water. Look at the water. I mean, if that isn't, in my mind, if that isn't as realistic as you can imagine it to be, I don't know what else is. Float planes. Put a float plane on the water. Whereas before, what would happen is the water would float over top of the floats and that kind of stuff, but the plane itself would more or less be stationary. Now, the plane bobs and floats around in the water. So when you're landing a float plane on water and you got rough seas, as it were, be mindful of that. It's not going to be easy. Let's just jazz up some wind here. Let's get ourselves a little bit of water there. Right, so we got some wind. Now we can't quite see it, but there's quite a wall of water up there. It looks like it almost doesn't look realistic, but here's the water, kind of rolling in. Like, to me, this is just unbelievably scenic and scenery. The scenery is just amazing. So that is my first crack at 2024 view, ideas, thoughts, opinions about it, the good, the bad, and so forth. You can be assured that there'll be more. I will be doing more now, side-by-side, true side-by-side videos where you have, 2020 flying around in, let's say, a Cessna, and you have in 2024 the same aircraft, and we'll fly them simultaneously. We'll have the same airports, we'll have the same weather pattern and so forth. There's Alex has taken off there, it looks like. But we'll be able to do a true representation. And if I miss it up a little bit, I have the ability to do it again. Right. You guys have yourselves a wonderful day, evening, night, morning, whatever time of the day it is for you. Have fun. Enjoy playing some games. Live life. Don't sweat the little things. They'll look after themselves. Fix the big ones that you can, and don't worry about the ones you can't, because you can't. Until the next one. Bye-bye.